Hey guys, Lemon02, going to be doing a Canadian Highlander video. So if you're unfamiliar with Canadian Highlander, it is a 100-card singleton format that is vintage ban list legal. That said, the most powerful cards in Magic are pointed in this format such that you can only have a certain amount, and each deck is allowed 10 points. So as you see by deck, I have cards like Mana Crypt, Strip Mine, and Mox Jet, which are all pointed cards, and count against 10 points total in my deck. In this case, Mana Crypt is 4 points, Strip Mine is 2, and then Jet is 3. So I'm actually short a point in this list. The list you have in front of you is a modified version of Suicide Black. I call this version affectionately Tubby SUI because it has a little bit of a muffin top, and in this case, the muffin top is Farseed Obliterator, and then I've got some other 4s that are in the deck to include Kalitas. So this is a metagamed SUI Black deck list, and frankly, it was funny. I was talking to someone afterwards, like I think this version of SUI is just better, and you're not wrong. This version of SUI is probably better in an open meta than the version of SUI that I've showcased before, which is more of a combo. It's more of a SUI list built around beating combo decks. They're actually vastly different decks. This is more of a mid-range deck in its heart, and the other SUI deck that I've showcased before is more of an aggro combo deck, honestly. This is still probably... Actually, you know what? Let's call it how it is. This is an aggro deck. It's an aggro to mid-range deck, some shade of aggression into mid-range. The other deck is an aggro combo deck. And the reason I say that is because the other deck is a Black Lotus deck. It's a Black Lotus Mox Jet list. It's also a Demonic Consultation deck. Both decks are Dark Ritual decks, but essentially the other deck is trying to get to a point at which it has essentially 4 Dark Rituals in the deck. And I don't know if it quite gets to 4, maybe like 3.5 or 3.75 with all of the other fast mana to include the Lotus Petals, the Chrome Mox, etc. There's a lot more fast mana, but that deck's designed intentionally that way to have one of the highest in the format probabilities of displaying 4 mana on turn 1 or more. And the reason it's doing that is because it really wants to get 6 to 8 power on the board turn 1 and just lights out for the combo decks. It's the problem that you run into with building like that is that oftentimes you're boxed into keeping hands that will develop very powerfully on turn 1 to turn 2 and then just not do much else the whole game. So against combo decks, why that's beneficial is because they're not a deeply interactive deck, and in general, they're going to look to just kind of do their own thing, transmute some cards, tutor for some cards, and then eventually go off on turn 3 to turn 4. And that's kind of similar with like the blue control-based decks too, depending on what they're using for board control. If they're using red-based removal, they can be better against that kind of strategy. But if they're using like white-based removal, like mass removal, or like blue-black, and they got to get to turn 3 to like get a Toxic Deluge off, or turn 4 to get a Damnation off, like they may very well be dead to like a Black Lotus start on the more aggressive version. So I guess you could say both decks are really like metagamed highly. This version of SUI is actually built to play more of a mid-range game. I'm going to continue to probably accidentally call this mid-range, even though it's really aggressive. This version is much more mid-rangey than the other version of the deck that I've showcased previously. This deck will be running more stereotypical cards that you would probably generally expect to see in aggressive black, mono black aggro. I don't think this deck's technically a SUI deck. SUI is really more like what I was doing before in the previous deck list, where like you're really trying to knock their lights out quick at the cost of long-term card advantage, and even in a lot of cases mana advantage long-term. Very significantly different deck. So this is a 30-land deck as opposed to a 24-land deck. One of the similar things, we're running both City of Traders and Ancient Tomb in this deck, but we do have some additional lands in here, some utility lands, if you will. I have a Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, which may seem odd just looking at this line of lands over here, but I also have an Arami, or Tomb of Arami, in here, which if you're unfamiliar with this card, it basically says, produce 1 black. If you tap it, it deals 1 damage to you if you don't control an ogre. I don't believe there's any ogres in this deck, but I have not checked exhaustively. You can also pay 4, 2 black and 2, plus tap this thing, so basically pay 5, and sacrifice all your lands and make a 5/5 black demon spirit creature token with flying, which is a big boy. And yeah, that's pretty good. It's a very strong effect to have. It's probably worth the damage that you take off of it incrementally over the course of a game. And if you're able to get a flyer at instant speed on their EOT, like generally speaking, you're probably going to kill them with it. That's just a big thing. Additionally, we're playing Beautiful and Mishra's Factory. With the increased mana base, I wanted to kind of go up on some utility lands. And then we also have Wasteland and Strip Mine. So Strip Mine is one of my 2-point cards in this deck. There's debate as to whether it should be Umezawa's Jit or Strip Mine. I think a lot of folks will assess Jit as being more powerful. In this deck, I don't know if that's per se true. This deck's really like not a pure mid-range deck where it's looking to get to 5 to 6 lands. Like it would ideally like to stop at like 4 to 5 mana sources, and then kind of just stop there. Jhin is really expensive, so like it's not expensive to cast. It's a 2 mana card, but the fact that it costs basically 4 the turn you play it to equip it and get some value off of it is a pretty big commitment of mana. And oftentimes it can lead you to getting blown out. That said, with this many creatures, like Jit would still be a really good include. If Mana Crypt was still 3 points, I think Jit would be in this list pretty much 100% of the time. As it stands right now, I just have a point floating. I don't think this is a Mind Twist deck. I could try running it. I don't think it's an Imperial Seal deck either. Those would be like the 2 cards that you kind of consider to maybe running it, but I don't think that this deck really requires either. Maybe in like certain very grindy metagames, but like even then, like Mind Twist like is kind of, how do I put it? Like Mind Twist is just a lot of mana. It's a very big commitment mana, and I don't think it scales that well. I think it's a very high variance card, and this is not a high variance deck. This is actually a really consistent deck. It's kind of funny because like this is the deck that I end up choosing to play in the 10th point. Season end, and actually ended up doing really well with it. But some folks were calling this deck like a higher variance deck. I think the older versions of it like are a little more high variance, although they're actually pretty consistent in doing what they're intended to do. They're not really good at doing anything else. So like the other versions, the Black Lotus version, like does its job to play that game plan very well. It's just get a bunch of shit out and try to Mike Tyson punch him out by turn 3 to turn 4. And if it doesn't work, you're probably dead. So it's a very 70-30 like kind of deck. I think this deck actually becomes a little more match neutral with how I've built it. It's a lot more landed, so it has a much more consistent development of its mana base. Thus, the inclusion of like Arami and some of the creature lands at this point, because like I think I have a little bit of room to play in it, and sometimes you'll overdraw lands, and it's good to have lands that can do other things like attack or like blow up their lands. But I think it becomes a much more matchup neutral deck. I don't think this is a 70-30 deck anymore. I think it's probably like a 60-40 deck. It's going to still have bad matchups, but like its good matchups haven't gone completely away. It's still going to have like pretty strong favorable matchups and then like some not so great matchups, but still winnable ones. All right, so that said, like I built this deck, this version of SUI Black or Mono Black Aggro, I'll just call it, because it's not really a Suicide Black deck. That is the other deck. The other deck is definitely Suicide Black. Like that's Suicide Black. I think really needs to circulate around ritual effects. It is essentially an aggro combo deck. It is an aggro combo deck. I think it needs to be played that way and designed that way. So it's kind of a density-based combo is what it's intended to be at the end of the day. It's just like one of the most all-in aggressive decks. All resources are committed to that. Whereas this build like has some hedges in it. It has some cards that are a little bit less aggressive or a little less effective at the aggressive job, but they accrue value over time. There's a lot more removal and hand attack in this version of the deck. And, there's some 4-drops in the deck as well, like some legitimate 4-drops that it's intending to cast, as well as some Planeswalkers. So the deck lists are significantly different outside of playing, some of the same cards. They operate pretty differently. I would say almost like, if you've played the decks night and day. So, like, the Black Lotus version is far different in how it operates, in my opinion. Anyways, let's start actually covering the deck. So this deck was built for a small metagame. Chrome Box actually ended up staying in. I ended up changing out Black Lotus for Mana Crypt and Strip Mine, as it were. Mana Crypt is a card that, like, if I could run in the Black Lotus version, I certainly would. One of the things I actually started working on is putting in 3-drops that have a lot of these 2 mana costs, which is black and 2. And a lot of them are very strong. They're just big things or things that get my stuff through. Pitiless Horde is a big lava axe. Plague Belcher, just big. Aim Eternal, just big. Rotting Regisaur, just massive. Spawn of Mayhem, huge. Kalitas, just massive. And Kalitas is a card that like I kind of wanted to call out because this card really kind of jumps off the Suicide Black plan a little bit. But because I knew in the small metagame that I'd be playing in, there were likely to be 1 to 2 aggressive red players. I think Kalitas was a necessary hedge. Kalitas is also just a good value card because, I mean, if you run more kill spells, which this deck, like I said, is running a lot more kill spells in it. It's got all of these cards over here that are intended to kill things, this pile right here, if you will. And there's some that I believe jump over, like Collective Brutality is technically a kill spell as well. The more things you kill, I mean, the more value you get out of it. And the fact that it keeps your opponent's cards from going in the graveyard where they can get value from them is also pretty strong. But really, it was just a lifelinker that's hard to deal with for the red decks. I wanted to have this effect in the deck. I have a couple other life linkers in the deck, and then just like some bigger chonkers that kind of just jump in the way of their creatures and force them to generally like two to three for one themselves to actually get around them. That's kind of the intent behind how that matchup should work. And because I think I have a higher creature density than like the burn decks will have, generally speaking, they're going to have to remove my stuff because my recursive sources of damage will continue to chip away at them, and they in general will have to block them or not be able to attack into them. Lashwraith, unfortunately, this never came up during the event, which I will showcase the gameplay of. But this card is just a beating. Like it's yeah. So this ended up going in over Dark Triumph. Dark Triumph is more of a kind of a aggro combo card. Like, and if you're not familiar with Dark Triumph, it says 4 plus black for CMC, so 5 converted mana cost. As an alternate cost for casting the spell, you can sacrifice a creature and then it's cast. It gives all of your creatures +2/+0. That card's very powerful in an aggro combo deck, but I don't think it's powerful as a long-term game plan. Whereas Lashwraith kind of does something similar when you have like slightly bigger creatures or more evasive creatures and more removal. To just push a ton of damage. Like this card is generally just going to be a 4/4, but like putting it on something with trample or flying is very powerful, and I think this can end games very fast. And it equips for free. So equips for 2 Phyrexian black mana. You can either pay mana to equip it, or you can just equip it for free. So it's 4 mana that basically it's 4 mana to cast basically what's going to in general be a 4/4. You could be casting it off like an Ancient Supercity of Traders though. But if it's off 4 swamps, like you probably just cast a haste 4/4 at that point, putting out another creature. Phyrexian Obliterator is another card that I added to the list. This is a card that you would think like is canon for Suicide Black. And it is very, very good, but it's more of a mono black aggro card, not a SUI black card. And I don't know if I'm clarifying exactly like the distinction between the two. SUI really circulates around how you produce mana. I think even more so than like the threats you're playing. Phyrexian Obliterator is a very powerful card, but it's not a card that with high fidelity you can actually turbo out on turn 1, nor in general do you want to. You'd actually rather produce like 4 to 5 things on turn 1 to turn 2, like 4 to 5 little things on turn 1 to turn 2. As opposed to one big thing, because the one big thing is going to go through a funnel of mana that requires a lot of cards to get to actually have happen. And if it gets Swords of Plowshares, then you're just out all those other cards. Whereas if like one of the things gets bolted, like you still have a good threat base down. Obliterator is something more so that like you want to have an attritional mid-range kind of version of the deck like this, where like they're going to spend their cards on your early stuff, and like ideally you put this thing down and like they're out of removal, or like they only have a little bit of red base removal left. They don't want to bolt this thing because it blows up their permanence and it's just a big dumb thing that kills them. So yeah, this is another card that kind of got in there. So what did we take out from the other SUI list? Well, mostly 2-drops. The 2-drops in this list, in the most aggressive version of this list, the Black Lotus version, the 2-drops are really not good. Like they're really pretty bad. So like the Shadow Weenies came out. Like there were 3 Shadow Weenies, I believe, the 3-drop and then 2 2-drop Shadow Weenies that were in the list. Those came out. There was a couple flyers that were black and 1 that couldn't block. I think it's like Vampire Interloper and some other stuff. Those cards are not good either. So that all came out. And what I ended up doing in place of those 2-drops is I put in a lot more 2-drop interactive stuff, or 2-drop interaction. So like Hymn to Turret came in. Drill Bit is another card. I just wanted another discard spell. I ended up putting this in. It's 1 mana interaction. And then, more stuff like Plague Engineer jumped in. This card actually came in over one of the Shadow Weenies. I believe the 3-drop Shadow Weenie. It's just a good interactive card. Malicious Affliction, Go for the Throat, Doomblade, Ghastly Demise, Dismember, Snuff Out, and Fatal Push were already in the deck before. But basically increase the removal count by about 50% in the list to be more effective at fighting fair matchups. Additionally, we got in 2 Liliana. So we have Liliana the Veil, which is a great way to continue to attack their hand. So like this card really is flexible between both these spots. Same with Collective Brutality. I mean, it can go into removal too. So like really like these are both playing double duty, and like we essentially have really it's like 8 and 10 removal and or discard spells in the deck, which is very powerful. And the rate of the cards have been in here before. I mean, like Duress, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, these are kind of the unholy trinity of hand attack and black. Collective Brutality, probably up there as well with these other cards because it's just really flexible. The modality of it's very flexible. Kitesail Freebooter is a card that I've actually been kind of low on in SUI, and I don't think it's in the most current list of the Black Lotus version of this deck. But I put it in this deck because I am running Lashwraith, and this card in general is just going to be better off, I think, in in matchups where flying is going to be relevant. Against the most aggressive combo decks and like blue decks, I often found that I was just better off playing a threat as opposed to like attacking their hand with this thing, because this thing did not present a fast clock. And that's always the biggest thing I was fighting against combos. Like, I need to present a faster clock. So, like, I would have rather had... I wasn't even playing him to Turek in the list, in that most aggressive list. I was actually more on the verge of considering playing Mind Swords, which is black 1, and alternate casting cost, or alternate cost, you can sacrifice a creature, and both players exile 2 cards of their hand. Card's very powerful, especially if you go Hellbent very easily, which that deck tends to do. This version a little bit less so, but it can still play a pretty quick game plan. But I like Kitesail Freebooter a little better in this version because I'm looking to play more of a grindy, attritional game. I do think flying was more relevant in the metagame than I was expecting. And you know, at the end of the day, it's a pretty good card. Like, I think when you think of like what kind of cards would this deck be playing, this is certainly one of them. As far as removal goes, yeah, the more fair our metagame gets, the better these removal cards get. Honestly, I don't even think it's crazy to play these in a more open meta right now because the medium decks are really good, and like Doomblade and Go for the Throat scale very well. Like, they just kill anything almost. I mean, yes, Doomblade doesn't kill black things, Go for the Throat doesn't kill robots, but you know, they deal with so much. They scale so well against like the dragons. Like, if someone like gets their mana crypt start and you're able to blow up their threat, like, it generally feels pretty good that you're able to do that, as opposed to like playing something like Lightning Bolt, where like Lightning Bolt has maximum flexibility to either go to face, go to Planeswalker, go to creature. Go for the Throat is one thing, but Go for the Throat always does that one thing real well. Doesn't generally matter what it is. You know, there's certain things it does, but you know, in general, it just always its job. And you know, these cards I think served me pretty well in the metagame that I was in. And I'm not even like per se like I don't even know if per se like it shouldn't just be run in the deck. Period. Like, these cards should just be canon in the deck because they felt really good. The deck, you know, as far as median game plan, felt a lot stronger than, like, the Black Lotus version of the deck. But, you know, again, like, kind of tying back to, like, what I was saying initially is, like, you know, I feel like all decks are meta decks, right? Like, I feel like it's very hard to take a deck out of context and be like, this is the right version, or this is a tuned-up version. You have tuned-up versions to do certain things. You know, it may just be, like, you could call this like a completely distinct deck from, like, Suicide Black. Despite it sharing like probably like 80% of the cards in it. Maybe not quite that many because I took I added 6 lands to this build when I was cutting stuff out. But yeah, like I think there's enough similarities between them. Like, it's hard to call them different decks completely, but you know, it's all context, right? Like, I was expecting not to play against combination decks. You know, if I was expecting things like High Tide, like I would play the most aggressive version of it. I was expecting things like Storm, most aggressive version. Like, the Black Lotus version is way better against the Storm decks. And even like against like Seinfeld or like Blue Control, like, you know, Blue-White Control, I'd rather have the more aggressive version. But this version right here, if you're going to be playing against green, if you're going to have to play red, heaven forbid, because it's still not a great matchup. This is a far better version for that because it is far more interactive and it has better threats that kind of scale well over time. Because you're not generally going to get a good knockout punch like, you know, turn 1. That said, I mean, Mana Crypt is a way you can get some knockout punches on turn 1 against certain decks. So there is that as well. So how did I make the changes? Like, so there's a lot of things that I cut from the deck. Like, all of the 1-drops that were basically 1/1s or 1/2s that cause 1 life loss. Like, so your Vampire, not Vampire Lacerator, Inquisitor, what was the card called? Vicious Conquistadors, your Pulse Tracker, like, all those cards came out. Like, I took every single one of them out, and I only kept basically the 2-power attackers. Not the ones that actually just did life loss. Those cards all came out. Hope of Gearper came out. And then all of the kind of like marginal, like 1 mana black, 2/1s that had flying and evasion came out of the deck as well. And that allowed me to actually include 6 additional lands in the deck. Although some of them are utility lands, like Wasteland and Strip Mine, I don't tend to include as components of the mana base. And then put in all of this extra removal and hand attack. So I think at the end of the day, like, so a couple piles I haven't talked through. I'll quickly cover them because like they're not really distinct from like the other deck techs I've done on Suicide Black. You have the card advantage pile here. So like, you know, I've already talked most of these cards. Liliana, the Last Hope, was a card I added to this deck, and mostly it's just for power level consideration. Like, this card is just very powerful, and like against other creature decks like that have like Llanowar Elves and stuff, like you can just like, you know, Mize out their turn 1 Llanowar Elves off of Mox Draw. Very, very strong. Get their Delver, whatever. Card's just very good. The rest of these cards are cards that have always been in here. So you have Dark Confidant, Painseer, Glint Steve Siphoner, and Rune Raider. Just card draw. Just card draw that's on an aggressive body. Tends to be really good. This next pile is just the recursive pile. None of this has changed. I think these cards are still great. I still want to play with them in the deck, despite it being a more mid-rangey version. And then I said Liliana the Veil we have in this deck as well. A couple cards you could consider. I mean, you could play Davriel, I think his name is, or Davriel, however you say his name. The guy who forces them to discard and then becomes the rack. That card is fine. Like, I kind of wanted to have cards that like have board impact. Like both Lilianas can have board impact. Davriel really doesn't. Like, he can be a clock if they're not doing anything, but like I don't really feel like that oftentimes is going to win you the game. Yeah. So that is basically the deck, guys. It's gone down on creature count. I think this used to be like a 53 creature deck. There is no more Caravac Spite in this build of the list. Like, this build does not run Caravac Spikes. I don't think that card tends to be good. There's no Soul Spike. There's no Tyrant's Choice in the deck, and there's no more mutagenic growth. So all like the burn effects, like I took out because I didn't expect that I would want to be kind of attacking the metagame along that axis. I figured a more median game plan like this would, generally speaking, do better. That said, I kind of did hedge and added in Forsaken Waste. This card's actually really powerful. It doesn't see a ton of play, but I knew that I expected that one of the players would be playing like a Bant Blink deck that had a lot of life gain in it, and I figured Forsaken Waste would be pretty good in that matchup. One, it causes life loss, it causes folks not to be able to gain life, and if it ever gets targeted, it also says that that spell's controller loses 5 life. So I figured this card would be a good hedge against that deck, but I thought that my higher removal count would also kind of give me a better game plan against the mid-range decks, especially the high synergy mid-range decks, because like the hand attack plus the removal, augmenting it, I think really tends to do a number on those decks that kind of like all of their cards kind of work together to have a certain effect. Not that would have made the matchup easy, but it certainly would have made it a lot more winnable than like with the most aggressive version. So anyways, guys, this is Tubby Sui. Tubby Sui is still a pretty aggressive mid-range deck. There's the curve out right there. I guess Snuff Out can go down here, and then Porcelain Legionnaire can go over here. Yeah, and Spawn of Mayhem's really this. Dismember goes over here. All right, there we go. So now that the deck's resituated, you got to see the breakdown of it. Another couple cards that I guess I didn't specify is Bitter Blossom is in this deck, and then I also have, and I'm not sure if this one's right, Dreadhorde Invasion. I do think this list could have used a Skull Clamp in it. I think Skull Clamp would have been really good in the metagame I was in. I just missed it, so like honestly, like I played. I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to play in the 10th point tournament with my deck. Or with any deck. I didn't have a deck chosen before I went into it, because unfortunately, I had life events that I had to take care of outside of Magic, and it turned out that I did have the time to play, but I wanted to play a deck that was relatively quick, that I enjoyed playing for starters, because I wanted to have fun, and that was relatively quick to play, but would also be decent in the meta. So the meta game is I expected it would be likely 1 to 2 red deck wins players, a blue-red spells player, a Bant Blink player, and an Abzan mid-range deck. So going in, like, I want to play Sui, because I'm like, I want to play a fast deck, because like I kind of want to like be able to like play and like either win or lose quickly, but I want to have game against everything, and I think this deck had pretty good game against everything that was in the field. The hardest matchup in the field, I think, should in general be Abzan. This deck's not going to be the best against Abzan. I think it's Bant Blink, it's fine. I think it has like some good lines against them, and like it's going to depend on who draws the right half of their deck. Like my deck, I think, in the median case, is going to be more consistent at presenting pressure, but if they manage to get a blink spell off on the right card, and I can't, or if they do it in response to like a removal spell, like I can be in some trouble there. But I think it's very winnable. Red deck wins is also not going to be the easiest, but it's still winnable, right? Because we have this Kalitas, we have this Phyrexian Obliterator, we have more value cards. Another card that I guess I failed to mention is Pack Rat. That card is back in this list. Pack Rat's a card that you would think would be in like every single mono black aggressive deck. Perhaps in the most optimized, like the optimized, which I don't even know what that means in Canadian Highlander, because I think it varies so highly. Pack Rat maybe should be in that list, but what I often found is that if I was trying to Black Lotus people out of the game, like my ability to get to 3 mana was really tough. Like I was like keeping hands where I could get after the Black Lotus with like a DC, or like I had a Ritual plus land plus Mox, and like getting to 2 was realistic beyond turn 1. But like typically speaking, I would produce like 5 to 6 mana on turn 1, and then like or like let's say 4 to 5 mana on turn 1, and then like I'd have 2 mana on turn 2, and then like I'd stay on 2 mana for the rest of the game. So like Pack Rat and cards like that were kind of rough. They didn't really do enough. Whereas in this deck, where you're going to make your land drops consistently, and like maybe at some point you could flood out, Pack Rat kind of helps with that because you'd be like, oh, I drew like my sixth swamp or whatever, my fifth swamp, like too easy. I'll just throw it out to this Pack Rat, and then I got a 3/3 or 2/2. And Pack Rat is a card that just avalanches in value too. So like if you get it down early, you know, and they're not able to remove it, like you get one token down, like it's generally pretty problematic for most decks if it just can keep going. So anyways, guys, well, let's cover the rest of the metagame. So I think Bant was pretty well covered by this deck. I think I had enough hand attack plus the creature removal to kind of attack that, plus Forsaken Waste to kind of lock up any like life gain shenanigans. Against red deck, we have the top end, so like Lash Wraith, the Phyrexian Obliterator, Kalitas, Spawn of Mayhem, like just big things, like big dumb things. Against the blue-red spells player, I don't feel like that's often going to be a bad matchup with either this version or the more all-in version of the deck. Excepting like the all-in version of the deck, if you get like Force of Will on your Black Lotus or Force of Negation on your Black Lotus, like you'll probably lose the game. But if they don't do that on like turn one, like you probably expand so fast that it's gonna be hard for them to come back. That said, I mean they still have stuff like Arc Trail and like Fire Ice, Electrolyze that can acquire very easy 2-for-1s against this the more aggressive version of the deck. But generally speaking, like the clock you put on this would be just as effective as like this list right here. But I think either deck has a pretty easy. I think that's an easy matchup generally for this deck from having played it a bunch of times. And then when you jump into red deck wins, like I think that matchup's generally going to be like, I don't know, it's really a weird matchup. So like you'll get to see me play that one. I think I've understood how I needed to play it pretty well when I went into it, and that was like play for time, like trade off resources really aggressively. And then expect that your top end, my top end, is going to be better. So I want to basically fight for as many draw steps as I can. And then basically force their hand on removal on my creatures until they run out. Try to stay at a high life total. And then just eventually draw your Phyrexian Negator. Your Phyrexian Obliterator, your Kalitas, your Lash Wraith, your Spawn of Mayhem. And then just either force them to like have like an X for 1, trade advantage, like where you get like 3-for-1 or 2-for-1 off of them. Or basically like have one they just can't deal with and it kills them. So anyways, guys, this is Tubby SUI. The deck did pretty well in the 10th point. Unfortunately, I had to cut out. So I made it to the finals, and then I had to cut out because unfortunately I had other life events. I expected to lose a lot sooner than that because I was the bottom seed in the event. So I had to basically run the gauntlet to get to the top of the event. And I managed to do it, but unfortunately, like I didn't expect to be playing that long, and like I think it was at like the 3.5-4 hour mark, and I was like, I gotta go, guys. Sorry. So we didn't end up playing in the finals. We ended up conceding to the finals. But I think the deck, on the whole, was pretty well set up, despite being kind of a fast, hasty build. That I was like, all right, I gotta like kind of attack these couple things for a small metagame. I think it was a pretty decent build for that. I think it could have been better. I think, like I said, Skull Clamp should have been in the deck, and maybe Mind Twist for a 10th point because it's a 9-point deck. But I don't know. Even that's a little speculative. I still think Twist is kind of bad in this deck. But anyways, this is the build, guys. I'm going to go on a quick pause. And if you're only interested in watching gameplay, well, I guess it's too late now. You're going to start getting it relatively soon. But go down to the comments. There'll be timestamps for all the games. If you don't want to watch all of them, maybe you only want to watch certain matchups with this deck. But go check them out. All right, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for some gameplay. Alrighty, guys, we're back. We're playing against Windy Del Carlo. So Windy and I are the bottom seeds. Windy, I believe, is 4th. I'm 5th. I didn't expect to play in this, so just a little bit of back history on the 10th point. Saturdays are historically kind of rough for me because I have a kid, I got other stuff going on, I got life, so I habitually have not played in these. I've commented a couple times on them, or I've done commentary, I've done the booth a couple times in them, and I've only played in 2 events. I did pretty well in both events, playing Death and Taxes in both. I think I went 2-1 in one of them, and then I won one of them. I took first place in one of them. I think that was a 3-0 finish. So I didn't expect to get into this. So the way the tournament was ended up working, it was a double elimination ladder. So Windy and I are the bottom 2 seeds. I'm the bottom seed. I'm 5th seed, and he's 4th seed. And we're gonna fight. We're gonna try to fight all the way up to the top player, but it's double elimination. So everyone can lose one game. The second game you lose cuts you out of the tournament. So I go ahead and get rid of the Carnifex here because I'm probably not going to jump back to 1. I play out the Bloodghast against Windy. I know Windy's on blue-red. We have each other's deck list. I didn't look at my opponent's deck list. I knew they were on blue-red spells. I kind of knew before going in. They draw a Temporal Mastery off the top. Unfortunately, they cannot cast that. Liliana, the Last Hope, is probably very problematic for them because it's a recursive source advantage. I play out the Ammon Eternal. The idea is here, like, they can either counter the Ammon Eternal or they can allow the Liliana, the Last Hope, to stick around. So basically, like, if they counter the Ammon Eternal, they're not going to double burn my Liliana. If they want to double burn my Liliana, the Ammon Eternal is going to get to attack and become a 5/5 again. Go ahead and smack them around for 4 here. Get my Ammon Eternal back up to a 5/5. Play out the Phyrexian Obliterator I've kind of been holding here. And now they're in a position where I don't think they can easily win this at all. They play on a Pyromancer. It's fine. I draw Kalitas, so just draw all my 4s and play out the Mardu Strike Leader with haste, or with dash. So I guess it's haste technically. My plan is here to attack with all. I think they could possibly survive. If they have a spell, they can definitely survive here. The Phyrexian Obliterator is basically unblockable in this board position. No, actually, they're probably just dead, right? The Ammon Eternal is really hard to block too, because I mean, it has a flick 3, so like anything that blocks it like can kill it, but like they're still going to take 3 damage off of it. Anyways, we basically kind of SUI them out. But some of these middling cards, I think, really definitely shined here for us. Like Phyrexian Obliterator is a pretty big step up from like the more aggressive version of SUI, where like you don't have this card, or you're not playing this card. Every other card we played, I guess, actually, looking back at this, like, this may just be a better version against, like, the blue-red spells deck even, but that all said, like, the reason this draw worked out the way it did, I think more so than anything, is really Curl Box. Like, fast mana just fucks people up. Yes, I had Exile Carnophage, but, like, is Carnophage really more relevant than, like, starting off on turn 2 on the play? Like, it's basically kind of how it goes with fast mana, and you kind of see it do a number here. It just snowballs. It snowballs really hard if you're able to keep on, exploiting it. In this case, I had a lot of the 4s to kind of exploit it, and I didn't flood out here at all. I just had gas. So, end up getting Windy here. I don't think it's a great matchup for Blue-Red. Like I said, I played against Blue-Red and, like, against Grixis, and, like, Grixis you would think would be better than Blue-Red against this deck, but historically for me it has not been. Like, they have more creature removal, but, like, oftentimes they kind of just get overwhelmed because they don't have really the threat density to kind of keep up with you, and they're either built like more tempo-y or more controlling, and like control this deck doesn't tend to care about because it has a lot of recursive threats, and then against tempo, like tempo's threat density is just not that high. So like if they get one threat down, like and you're able to remove it, like you basically just keep on laying bombs on them until they can't counter it or kill it anymore, and then that last thing kills them. Tends to be how it plays out. But anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll come back for game 2 against Windy here. Alrighty, guys, we're back. This hand's great. I mean, it's got a turn 1 threat, turn 2 threat, turn 3 threat. Got a card engine in it. Like, got basically everything you could want. The turn 1 threat's even recursive, and I have I have 1 zombie in hand. Play out the Gravecrawler here. They Ancestral Recall, which is a pretty good one to start off with. They slide a hand. Play out the Delver of Secrets, but no red mana yet. Red mana tends to be the mana that I'm most scared of. It tends to be the red and white mana tend to be the harder colors for this deck to beat. Draw to Forsaken Waste, which is a good card. Probably not going to be casting it here, though. Forsaken Waste is good, but like they're not going to have life gain in their deck, more than likely, unless they have like a Jit. Or like a Batterskull, or like if they had like a random Dragon's Eye, maybe. That wouldn't work. I guess it could work, so if they have red spells too. So they attack me with the Delver. I think this attack with Delver is very aggressive. I play out 4 mana worth of spells, 2 creatures here. If you run an additional card, just find a swamp. They look with their Jace, and then just go ahead and pack it in. They're just really dead to this. This is a lot of pressure. They're down to 7. They have an Ancestral Apparition on board, but the Jace is not going to flip until next turn. They're probably looking for red mana to try to see if they can like remove a couple of threats. Yeah, just a lot of pressure real quick. This is more of a SUI draw. This is kind of like a SUI draw in the deck. You kind of got to see like the more mid-rangey style parts of the deck in the first game, and then this game, like you just kind of get to see it go 1, 2, 3, 3-1, and it's just that's enough. It's just a lot of pressure really quick. It's kind of it allows you to double spell a lot faster, and it's hard for the blue decks to kind of keep up with that. So, anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for game number 2 in this tournament. So, be back momentarily. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Play against Baylight here. Baylight I know is going to be a harder opponent because they're on Abzan. Abzan's going to be the hardest matchup for this deck. Abzan just has good game against a lot of different things. It's a good matchup neutral deck. It's also very powerful. It's got a lot of different effects in the deck. His build of the deck I think is a little better for me because it's a little more, how do I put it? It's a little more value-oriented, which I think, in general, I think is good for me. Like, it has cards like Winding Way, Henny's Expertise, some cards you don't tend to see. I draw a Mana Crypt here, which is a powerful card, but I don't think one that I'm going to cast out right now. Doesn't really give me anything. So one of the things I'm hoping for is that I can double remove. I can do double removal spells on a certain turn. This is kind of an interesting part in the game. So, like, I'm going to go ahead and attack and see if they want to block here. If they don't block, I'll just play out the Knight and get some value. They go ahead and trade me. Plague Engineer does, of note, have Death Touch. I'll just go ahead and play out 2 threats. Unfortunately, what happens here is kind of a game-changing play. It's possible I should have tossed out the Mana Crypt. My thinking is here is this. Like, I really would have loved to be able to kill this Tarmogoyf, and if I had discarded differently, I'd probably be in a better spot, or at least in a spot where, like, I am certainly able to win the game, or I just have to get a land drop to win the game. My thinking was this, like, their deck is a lot less efficient, and, like, Tarmogoyf is the best thing I think they can do post-Gerard's Verdict here. So, if they have it, they have it. I guess what I'm trying to say is this, like, if the psychic play was to keep one of the removal spells, because I think if I keep a removal spell, I'm put in a position where I'm very close to winning, or I'm, like, possibly just winning. Here, as it stands, I did not. I got rid of the 2 removal spells and kept the Mana Crypt, which may have been a bit greedy, but the reason I kept the Mana Crypt is because it allows me to activate the Knight of the Ebon Legion, which gives me a lethal swing on the following turn, which I don't ostensibly have on board, and because I've kept that information hidden, I figure there's a chance they don't have, like, a follow-up creature, or they have a follow-up creature that's kind of small. As it turns out, they had Goyf, and we're in a lot of trouble here. They go ahead and block. I go ahead and give my Knight of the Ebon Legion Death Touch and +3/+3. It kills the Goyf. The Goyf kills it. They play out a Nissa Vastwood Seer. Find a forest, play out forest, and pass it back. I'm kind of in a rough spot now. Like, this removal, pitching this removal looks pretty bad here. I don't think I can afford to cast Thoughtseize this turn. I think I have to develop just to keep pace in the game. I could opt to sack out my my Dread Wanderer, but I want to get them down to 3 here. 3 is relevant because if I draw, like, Forsaken Waste or something along those lines, like, I get, like, a kind of a tempo kill here. They play out Titania, which is fine. Like, now the board is kind of slipping away from me. And, if you go back and look at this game, like, the removal was very relevant. And, it's possible I screwed up on that Gerard's Verdict turn. I get rid of their removal, their Vindicate, but I still need to have a draw step here because they have Kitchen Finks in hand. So I have them ostensibly at dead on board, but because I have Thoughtseize and I know what their hand is, which is a Forest Kitchen Finks, Traverse the Ulven Wall, which Traverse does not have Delirium yet, so it can't find a creature. It can only find a basic right now. I get rid of the Vindicate because the Vindicate can directly deal with the Smuggler's Copter, which is my out to winning this game. Unfortunately, I have to find 2 more damage. So, like, Collective Brutality off of the Smuggler's Copter activation would be really good. But I don't have as much burn. This is not SUI, so it doesn't have the burn. So there's less cards for me to find here that are really good. They go ahead and attack me for 5. I just go ahead and take. The other thing is if I draw a kill spell and they don't play something, I mean, they're going to play their Finks, so it doesn't really matter that much. But if they got greedy and, like, drew a card with Nissa and, like, didn't find a good card, didn't find a creature card, like, it's possible, like, I could get a kill spell, kill the Titania, and then, like, use the Menace plus the Dread Wanderer to get 5 damage in. They're at 4 because they fetch here. I draw into a Tormented Hero, which is not really doing me any favors. So now I'm basically just looking for Collective Brutality because I'm unable to attack with the Relentless Dead. I find a Swamp and go ahead and concede the game. So, pretty close one. I think a lot of it came down to kind of my decision-making on Stuff Out versus Malicious Affliction. I think in the median case, I think that was the correct discard because it allowed me to actually set up a lethal attack on the following turn with Knight of the Ebon Legion had I, by keeping the Mana Crypt. So I kept the highest upside hand in what I consider to be a general bad matchup. So take, like, in my opinion, like, you have a bad matchup, like, generally speaking, you want to take the highest upside play. They unfortunately had, like, the best, like, Tarmogoyf is the best card to play post-Gerard's Verdict there after I discarded both my removal spells because it outclasses all of my creatures and trades favorably with my Knight of the Ebon Legion despite having it go up to being a 4/5 with Death Touch, which is unfortunate, and that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Like, we fought him down to 1 card in hand. I think put up a pretty good fight here, but unfortunately just didn't make the muster in this game and ended up dying like a dog in the streets. So anyways, guys, we'll come back momentarily for our second game against Abzan. Alrighty, guys, we are back. So this hand is bad. I mulligan it. This hand is a keeper, but it's really dicey. But it's keeper. I discard the Kalitas. I think Phyrexian Obliterator will be more powerful. I go ahead and play out my Diregraph Ghoul with the plan to try to drill bit next turn, but ideally like Fatal Push like a Mana Dork here, if they play one. Alrighty, so I draw into a Shadow Alley Denizen, which is not a bad card in this matchup, but they do have some black creatures. Go ahead and attack him for 2, put him down to 18. Drill Bit. And see this. I see a Gerard's Verdict, which is a card I can't allow them to have. I'm so low on resources already, based on having a mock start and it being on a mulligan to 6 in the play, that I think leaving them with Gerard's Verdict is really risky. They're a little bit land light, but they have a Demonic Tutor to find mana if they need to. And they kind of just have a Bomb Train. Like, Thrun is really hard for this deck to deal with. It's just a big, dumb thing that's hard to interact with. It regenerates and, blocks everything in my deck. And, well, except Fraction Obliterator, which is one of the reasons I kept the card. They have Gideon, which is a good finisher, and then Titania, which is a good finisher, plus Demonic Tutor. Wasteland is worthless. My hope is they just don't hit lands, and I get a couple turns of hitting lands to develop into this Obliterator. Doesn't feel that likely, though. Alright, so they fetch Demonic Tutor, possibly for land, who knows. Alright, so step 1, draw land, which is good. That's very good here. They play out a Nissa Vastwood Seer. I assume they drew that. I don't think they would have tutored for that. They find a Rune Raider, which is fine. I think I could have made a stronger blind here. I could have actually cast out the Rune Raider and given the Digraph Ghoul Intimidate, but I kind of thought about it and I was like, when I was playing this game, I was like, I think I don't mind trading here. Because I'm just biding for time. They have the land, which, well, I guess we knew they had the land at that point because they had Nissa Vastwood Seer. I go into attack here, so this is an interesting line, right? I'm pretty sure I'm going to get Bomb Train down, so this looks 100% wrong, and it is. Like, technically speaking, this is wrong. What I'm actually kind of hoping to do here is, like, high roll 3 damage through them, on them, and see if they just don't block because it has Intimidate. They block. I think I'm probably like 100% losing this. They Demonic Tutored. They've got a Siege Rhino on board, which is a hell of a draw. They still have a Thrun in hand. They still have a Titania in hand. So, like, right now what I'm kind of looking to do, and, like, so the reason Titania is kind of bad for me and why I want to try to, like, see if I can get some, like, incremental damage in there, and why I don't think the value on Rune Raider is going up, is because Titania is really hard for Phyrexian Obliterator to beat because, like, they just block it with one of their stupid tokens, sacrifice all their lands, and make, like, 26 power or 25 power. They kill off my Mogi's Marauder, which kind of sucks. Get my Shadow Alley Denizen, Intimidate, and I'm looking pretty dead. They draw another land, which means that the Titania is available now, but they play out their Gideon, make a thing. I could sack one of my things and then, like, Fatal Push their Siege Rhino. I don't think that's that good, though. Like, I don't think it's very good. Play out the Bob here. Kind of hoping to maybe get to draw on some cards. I go ahead and sack the Shadow Alley Denizen, knock out the Siege Rhino this time, opt to attack the Gideon. Like, I got to get this Gideon off the board or else it's going to win the game. But basically, like, at this point, I've kind of basically already, like, said, like, hey, I'm going to lose this game. Like, I'm probably not. They have Yenny's expertise. So they have a lot of. They kind of have some good draw steps here. Like, they draw into the Siege Rhino, which is great. The DT was going to help fix their mana, but they continue to draw lands, which is also good. And in a hard matchup already for my deck, I think when they draw really well, like, it's going to be real tough. So anyways, we end up dying like a dog in the street in this game, and now we're at 1-1 in the tournament, and basically our tournament life is on the line, because if we lose another game, then we're just out. So anyways, guys, quick pause. I'll be back momentarily. You're going to see some rematches between a lot of players here. So Windy was in the X1 bracket. At this point, I'm in the X1 bracket as well, so we're going to play each other again for round of 3 in the tournament. And at this point, the top seeds in the tournament, Rami and Gosman, have actually yet to play a game of Magic. They're just kind of commentating and watching the matches. So quick pause, guys. I'll be back momentarily for game number 3 against Windy again. Alright, guys, back. So I kind of knew that I was going to lose to Baylight. Or I expected that I would in general. That said, I mean, like, you don't ever want to go in and, like, just straight up, like, lose a match, but I don't think it was that bad for me, because here's my thinking about how this entire bracket would play out, because we kind of knew the bracket and how we'd be playing, or who we'd be playing throughout it. I kind of felt like it was okay for me to lose that game, because I felt like, in general, Baylight would tend to lose to Rami's deck. Or, I'm sorry, I felt like it had a good, like, 50-50 shot against Rami's deck, and if he played Gosman first, like, he probably beats Gosman in general as well. I would think he should, on Abzan. So I felt like the chances of him getting, like, relegated to the X1 bracket, and, like, or getting past, like, the second matchup he played was pretty high to go to, like, 2-0. So I figured I wouldn't have to face him again until near the finals. So that said, like I'm facing Windy again in this matchup, which I think is a resoundingly good matchup. So I have a feeling that like unless my deck completely poops on itself, or like Windy has like some of the best draws in his deck, I'm probably going to be able to get him here because I feel like I have probably strategy superiority in this matchup. Not that I'm saying I'm a better deck builder or like that like I have better strategy than Windy. I'm saying that I think my deck's strategy in general is better than his deck strategy for beating the strategy he's playing. I also think in like this metagame, I think this deck's a little more well suited over blue-red spells. I don't think I like blue-red tempo as a choice in this metagame. I love the deck to death though, and I play the hell out of it. But anyways, you get in there with a Gravecrawler, play out another recursive threat. It plays out a Monastery of Spirit, Charter Course, main 1 to get some pump, and yeah, I think I could have seen just attacking there and drawing 2, but he may have wanted to discard to up the spell count so he can flip over this Curious Homunculus. But the thing is, like, I don't really care about Curious Homunculus flipping. I have a Doomblade, and, like, right now I'm doing so much damage that, like, to me, it's like, have a 3-4 prowess. If you want to try to tempo me, but, like, I'm at 20. I got bigger threats than you do. Like, what are you going to do about it, right? So now I just start Doomblading and killing everything. Just kill all of his stuff. Leave him with a 0-3, and smash him down to 5. I'm at 19. He's at 5, and got 2 cards in hand of my 1, and it's like, you know. It's not a good position for the blue-red spells deck. So I take game 1 in a pretty resoundingly, fast SUI fashion here, and we go into game 2. One moment, guys. I'll be right back. Alrighty, guys, we're back for game number 2 against Rami. This hand looks fine. It's a little clunky, but it's fine. It's got a Babo to get some card advantage. It's also got a Pack Rat, which can just run away with games. Be nice to draw a 1-drop, but it's fine. Draw a Swamp. Swamp's good. Swamp is fine. Wendy plays out a Mountain here. Ends up playing out, I believe, a Jace of Vryn's Prodigy. I draw into a Snuff Out, which is like one of the best draws in my deck because I can just hammer fist this thing out. He mulliganed very aggressively down to 4 cards. He draws 1 there. Has both his colors, but has lost his Jace and lost 2 burn spells out of his hand. I play on a Babo and a Pack Rat. He gets some Izzy Mortars, kills the Pack Rat. I guess that makes sense. I think either card is going to really kill him here. I just start playing out stuff and things. I'm going to be losing, like, on average 3 life a turn, but I have this Gifted Aetherborn to kind of recoup some of the life loss. Draw into a Strip Mine, but actually I opt to use it for mana this turn. You cast down a hasty or dashed in Pitiless Horde to Lava Axe them in the face. This is 9 damage, half their life total, so they're dead next turn. And they draw and see not what they need, evidently, and they go ahead and pack it in. Now, this is the only card I played Dreadhorde Invasion, or the only matchup I played Dreadhorde Invasion, and like I said, I don't think I'm sold on it. Honestly, like, over time, it's really good. It's probably at its best against, like, these kind of, like, more controlling decks, like Windy's. Not that, like, Windy's deck is, like, exceedingly controlling, but it's probably one of the most controlling decks in the metagame that I'm in right now. So, if there was a matchup, this card would be good, and it'd probably be this one. That's it. I don't know. I think it probably could have been a Skull Clamp in this metagame, and I would have been better off because of it. But I only saw it once, and, I made 1-1, and then, like, they were already dead. So, but that said, like, the mid-range plan is not really going to be something that you try to go towards in this matchup. Like, you're just going to try to, like, do the actual SUI thing against them. Like, just cast efficient cards and just rip them apart. Like, just hit them as fast and as hard as you can, make them deal with it. And then if they do, like, maybe you start playing out some of these, like, incremental threats, like Dreadhorde Invasion, and, like, they just eventually take over the game after they've expended all their resources. So anyways, guys, quick pause. So now we are 2-1, and we're going to face the loser of Rami v. Baylight. So quick pause, we'll be back momentarily, guys. Alrighty, guys, we are back, and so, unfortunately, Baylight lost against Rami. I was kind of hoping Baylight would get Rami, but he didn't. So I have to face Baylight again. I do think in this entire tournament of 5 players, I think Baylight's deck is going to be the hardest for my deck to beat, because it's more of a good stuff strategy than Rami's deck is. Rami has, like, more of a synergy build, but, like, some of his cards on their own just don't do anything. So, like, I tend to be kind of happy with those sort of decks because I have more hand attack and more creature kill. And against that style of deck, I think I'm more well suited to winning than I am against this one, against, like, just an Abzan good stuff deck. I play out the Erectos Cackler, try to give him some beat down here, get a 2-2 in play. Say go, plays out Woodland Cemetery. Find a Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom's quite nice. Go ahead and jam that out there. Bitter Blossom's kind of threat that I like in this matchup because it requires specific cards, right? It requires, like, Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy. And Assassin's Trophy, I don't per se mind them getting. So So no attack into that. They go ahead and tutor here. I assume it's probably for a Toxic Deluge. They go ahead and hammer my hand with Gerard's Verdict, which gains them 3 life, but gives me a Scrap Heap Scrounger to get back. I draw into a Hymn them. They get out a Yahini's Expertise and a Liliana the Last Hope. So I'm looking at that, and I'm like, all right, this worked out well for me. They took a turn off to tutor and get a Gerard's Verdict off, and I got their 2 best cards. I draw into a Wasteland away, one of their black-green sources. Attack them for 4. They're going to be able to attack back for 3 lifelink, which will put them back up to 12. They cast down a Knight of the Reliquary, 4/4 at this point in time, get another flyer. Play out a Vampire Lacerator, but they're tapped low again, so their creatures are tapped at this point, so I get to get him again with the Relentless Dead. I attack with all of my flying men that are capable of attacking, getting them for 5 damage down to 7. They're going to go back up to 10 at this point. They play on a Misty. If they fetch, this puts them down to 6 plus 3, so they're 9. Dreg Mangler comes down, and I'm not going to take damage off my Lacerator this turn. Draw to a Geralf's Messenger. So I go ahead and attack with all. I just do it all on attack. I want it to look like a frustration attack. This is actually lethal. If they don't have anything with the Sylvan Caryatid. If they don't have Swords to Plowshares, this is lethal. So they block here, get a bunch of 2/2s, but they're down to 1. Cast out the Geralf's Messenger and dome them down to 2. So win game number 1 against what I consider probably my worst matchup in this metagame. So quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for game number 2 against Baylight. Alrighty, guys, I'm back. Yeah, perfectly acceptable hand. It's got some removal, card advantage, card filtration, some hand attack. They knock my Bobo out, which is upsetting because Bob was probably the best card in my hand. I go ahead and duress them and see utterly nothing. They have a Nissa, a Siege Rhino, and a Dreg Mangler, so they're not really doing a ton. I go ahead and get the Smuggler's Copter down. Smuggler's Copter is kind of nice because I can get rid of the Scrap Heap Scrounger and get it back later if I'd like. They play out a Courser of Crewfix. I cast out this Relentless Dead. Go ahead and attack them with the Smuggler's Copter. Draw to a Carnophage, ditch the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and opt to play out the Carnophage. Unfortunately, this card, so Ghastly Demise is kind of a weird card. So destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. I was a card off in my graveyard from actually killing it. So yeah, unfortunate, but it is what it is. I actually opt to cast this thing out, sacking the Carnophage, getting an extra damage in or extra life loss in. Go ahead and so I think in this deck specifically, it's always correct to loot, even if you have a 0-card hand. I like looting the Scrap Heap Scrounger. I'm sorry, Smuggler's Copter, because I have cards like Bloodghast and like Gravecrawler, stuff like that are going to be better. I'm going to be better off having them in my yard than like drawing them on the following turn. Same with like Scrap Heap Scroungers. The more creatures I just randomly toss in the bin, like Scrap Heap Scrounger can be recursed more times. So I tend to like that. So I go ahead and get them for 3 down to 10. They have a Swamp on top. And I have Recursion on Scrap Heap Scrounger up right now. Plus I have 2 Menace threats in play and 1 Flying threat in play, which is not irrelevant. They're also drawing into Hymn to Turek here, which Hymn to Turek is an actively bad card to be drawing because I have 0 cards in hand. And I don't plan on keeping any cards in hand, knowing they have Thoughtseize. I draw into a Thoughtseize of my own. I go ahead and tap the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and I'm going to go ahead and get an attack in here. They can make some double blocks. I'll eat their Courser if they do. I think in retrospect, it may have made more sense to keep the Collective Brutality. The problem is I had to cast it this turn. I just go ahead and get the Siege Rhinoceros. Yeah, if I didn't have to cast that turn because I know they have hand attack in their hand. If I didn't have to cast it that turn, I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have kept it over Thoughtseize. So I go ahead and tap the Relentless Dead here. Go ahead and get another attack in, put them down to 9. Correction, I attack with both. So I'll trade. I'm looking to trade them here. I go ahead and actually kill or get rid of the Knight of the Ebon Legion, which I think is like tough. They go ahead and block here. Knight of the Ebon Legion is a tough one to get rid of because I feel like there was a good chance they just don't block they don't block there, and I end up being able to cast it and get some value off of it. Play on Liliana here, force them to sack, activate, get in for 6, down to 3. I again draw, find a swamp, pitch it. They go ahead and Eldamri's Call here, find Emrakul the Promised End, cast Emrakul the Promised End, which kind of stinks because it's going to kill me. So the way this kills me is they take my turn, they can put me down to 14 off the Ancient Tomb. They can eat my Smuggler's Copter as well, which is kind of annoying, so I don't have a flyer then. And the Liliana's too small to deal with the Emrakul right now. The problem is they have Dreg Mangler in their yard, so what's going to happen is they're going to eat my Smuggler's Copter after discarding my Ammit Eternal. They put me down on low on life. Unfortunately, I draw another Swamp, which means now I am dead. But I want to make sure they know they've got me dead. I go ahead and attack him with the Relentless Dead, putting them down to 1. Go to their turn, they see their draw step, and they go ahead and scavenge the Dreg Mangler onto the Emrakul, and I'm just dead. Emrakul is a pretty spicy card they have in their list. You don't tend to see it in a lot of these Abzan lists. They tend to like it. Again, this is a more fair metagame, and I think cards like this you can kind of get away with in this metagame. So, yeah, it's very, very powerful. I don't think in, like, the fastest of, like, I think the fastest combo decks will tend to, like, not care about this. Like, they'll just, kill you. But it's very powerful, right? It's very, very powerful, and it can definitely win games. It does here, so it gets us. I think we had a pretty commanding position, and I'm like, man, I got to go to game 3, and this is a tough matchup. So, like, I felt like I got pretty lucky in this game. If the Babo would resolve, it'd probably be a little better if it hadn't been, like, Inquisitioned. But yeah, like, we fought through quite a bit, but still managed to be just a little bit short. Like, they had that old Domri's call for Emrakul, and that's able to get us here. So, on to game 3, guys. Be back momentarily. Alright, guys, back for game 3, and this, for me, this is tournament life. If I lose this one, then I'm out of the 10th point tournament at that point. Go ahead and play out a Gravecrawler here. They play out a Twilight Mire. So this is a weird play to me. Like, they play out a land that does not produce colored mana without another land. So that either means, like, they're trying to bait me if they think like maybe I have mana-based denial, or they just have a really mana-light hand. Like, if they want to hedge against me having mana-based denial, by playing this one out in case I just wasteland at turn 1. They also play a Nihil Spellbound, which is not really a high-impact play, but it cycles itself. So my thinking is they probably have 1 to maybe 2 other sources of mana in hand, or maybe like 1 plus a Sylvan Caryatid. Either way, I'm going to get to know because I have Thoughtseize in hand, but I am going to probably wasteland in this turn just to bide some time. You'll note I did play out my threat first. I think in this deck you always want to get pressure down before you start trying to disrupt. So let's go through their hand. Their hand is a little bit greedy. I'm kind of happy to see that they kept this hand because this hand's very powerful, but it also requires them to hit mana pretty much every turn, or else I'm going to be able to kind of just like get them. So I blew up their Twilight Mire, and they're down to 1 land plus a Nihil Spellbound in play. I'm going to be able to get in for 2 down to 18, which is not a significant clock, but like it's important that you get every point in you can. Just play out the Scrap Heap Scrounger here because I want to just hit as hard as I can, as fast as I can. Nail them. They cycle off the Nihil Spellbound after fetching for Bayou. They don't play a land on this turn. I'm like, alright, well, probably going to be able to get there. Play out my land, which was a good draw for the turn. Play out the Rune Raider so I can draw an additional card at the EOT. Hit them for 5 down to 10, and they're very close to dead next turn. Draw to a Swamp here. They miss land again. This is the power of Wasteland, right? I know they have Scavenging Ooze in hand. That's really the only card that can get me. So I play out this Phyrexian Revoker. Smash them for, 8? Yeah, put them down to 2. They play on a Sylvan Library and then concede the game. So, yeah, Wasteland and Thoughtseize, yeah, they can win games. I ended up getting their greens in the season because I didn't want them to like tutor for like a mana dork. The biggest problem I had with this hand is like if their mana works out, like this hand will kill me. But if I can stifle them long enough on mana development through Wasteland, through Thoughtseize, then I can probably just get them with like these little idiot threats that I've got. As it turned out, it ended up working out. So we get a little lucky. We make an upset here against Baylight. Baylight was definitely a higher seed than we were, and I think it was probably our hardest matchup in the whole tournament. I do think it's a harder matchup actually than the Red Deck Wins matchup. But yeah, so we managed to knock him out. Simultaneous to this game, Rami and Gosmit were playing. So Red Deck Wins versus Bant Blink, and Rami 99 managed to get Gosmit in a match. I believe in a 2-1 split. So we have to fight Red Deck Wins next. So fighting up to for the third place slot here, and or possibly going into the finals versus Rami from the bottom seed. So quick pause, guys, and I'll be back momentarily. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Yeah, this hand is keepable but not inspired. The reason you keep this hand is because, like, one, if you high roll like a Dark Ritual or a Mana Crypt, you can play a Kalitas on 2. Median draws are going to look like 1-drops or lands. So, like, lands or 1-drops are not bad either. Forsaken Waste is a virtual mulligan to 6. You don't want to play Forsaken Waste in this matchup. It's not good. But, it's got some creatures. My expectation is like maybe they'll trade off with my opponent's creatures. They play a Nice High Golem, which is not really what I want to see. I see a Liliana, which is not a bad draw, but because they're going to have more X1s in their deck. They play out Runaway Steamkin, and now I'm pretty far behind. I draw Gutter Bones, just not great. Plan here is just trade off this thing. I expect if they have removal, they'll probably just burn it off. When they don't, I expect their hand is very low removal count. Go ahead and trade off my 2/2. Play out the Hex Mage, and I'm pretty behind here. I'm probably not going to be able to win this. Kind of missed on lands this turn. It's not good for me. If I hit a land, maybe I can pull it out, but it's going to be tough. Going to be real tough because I'm really far away from Kalitas here. They go ahead and attack. This is an interesting attack because I actually do have a cool trade here. I think they wanted to actually Grim Lavamancer if they could my Vampire Hexmage, which they could have here. So I block this, and first strike damage goes on the stack, or goes onto the creature. There's no stacking of damage anymore, but it hits the creature, and then I sacrifice it to remove the counters, which kills it. So I get to eat their Runaway Steamkin. I blow up their 2/1, which is not putting me in a good spot. They Skullcrack the Liliana. Play out a Rampaging Ferocodon. Now I'm basically dead, because Rampaging Ferocodon doesn't allow me to get back into this game with Kalitas. So I play out the Rune Raider with the expectation to just try to block something. They play out an Abbot of Carol Keep. I'm not going to be able to block either of these because one flies, one has Menace. So I'm going to take 6 down to 5. And basically I'm dead. I could play out the Kalitas here, but it doesn't change the board position. They're just going to attack with this thing and then burn me out with the Grim Lavamancer. Basically what it looks like is like Lavamancer here, EOT down to 3, and then if they have a 3-mana burn spell, they can kill me, or they can just put me down to 1 with Grim Lavamancer and then attack with all and just still win. So anyways, I die here, like a dog in the street. Not the easiest of matchups, but I also think not unwinnable. I think over time, my deck actually kind of has some increasing value, whereas I think their deck is going to have stronger starts. They're a Black Lotus deck, and they're going to be faster. Like, that's going to be one of the things that I have a tough time with. And, I think when folks were commenting on the game, they said that, like, this version, like, SUI Black is more of a high roll deck. I really don't think this version is. I think this version actually can accrue quite a bit of value. It actually plays a significantly better, like, mid to long game, especially against these aggro decks. That's kind of by design, because, like, I knew I'd probably have to face this sort of matchup, and, like, I didn't want to play, like, a really all-in black aggro deck where, like, your cards just don't equate into higher win percentage the longer the game goes. So, yeah. There's a couple of them. Like, Forsaken Waste is not good, right? Like, this is just a non-card in my hand. Not the matchup for it. But the last matchup would have been good for it, and then, like, against Blue-Red spells, it's fine. And against, like, Rami, if I end up playing Rami, it's a good card, too. Quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily. Alright, guys, we are back for game of 3. Or for game number 2, I'm sorry. Game number 2 of hopefully 3. It is 3. We end up winning this game, at least. So you'll get to see game 3 here momentarily. Alright, so this is an interesting hand. I want to draw lands here. But I'm going to keep it. Like, I'm not going to pitch back a Mana Crypt. Like, I feel like if you pitch this back, like, you're just asking to lose. Like, this is an attritional matchup. So, like, I play a threat out, and I kind of want to see if they'll remove it. Like, if they don't remove it, like, I feel a little better. They don't remove it initially, so they're going to at least let me get damage in. I draw my land, and I'm like, woof, alright, that was big. Liliana's really powerful in this matchup because I think every card in their hand is relevant. They need every single resource they have, and I can get a free discard here off of my Bloodghast to, 1, set up the Ghastly Demise for their first threat, and 2, get back my Bloodghast at some point in time, right? So I go ahead and just, get him with Liliana the Veil. I do think Liliana the Veil actually, like, once their board's developed, it's really shitty, but, like, in a position like this, it's really good. They blow up my card drawer. It's fine by me. Take 3 hit off the Crypt. End up discarding the land here. I could keep the land and try to play on the Bloodghast, but I don't want to pitch my removal spell. I think my removal spell is worth more than getting the Bloodghast back right away. They Lava Dart on my face. Play out a Stormbolt Berserker. I just go ahead and Ghastly Demise it. It's going to benefit me to trade off resources here. I don't want to keep cards in hand because I have Liliana on the board, and I don't really want to, like, be losing cards to her. I'd rather them just be the only ones losing cards. Play out the Gutter Bones here, and go ahead and get rid of their Rampaging Ferocodon. So they're down to 0 cards in hand, and yeah, I'm down to 12 life, but I've got the onboard advantage. I've got this Liliana, winning some flips here, which is always good. Draw into a Vampire Hexmage, which is fine. Go ahead and play it out here. And then go ahead and use Liliana. I believe they cast a Brute Force, which opens up their Barbarian Ring to be used as a 2 damage removal spell, which I believe they use on the Carnophage. Yep, they get Carnophage off the board. That's fine by me. Not unhappy to be trading off resources here. Alright, so win the flip again, which is good. Draw an Ammon Eternal, which is just a big boy. Cast him out. Go ahead and use the Liliana to plus again. I'm not going to minus the Liliana for 6 to kill one of their lands. That's a very expensive Stone Rain. rather just keep on forcing them to play each card they draw each turn. And if they can't, then they lose it. And if they do, they do. But like basically, they have zero hidden information from me. And when this 5/5 hits the board, they evidently don't have anything relevant to do. Like they just go ahead and pack it in because this is just too much. I mean, this is a 9 hit down to 4, dead on the following turn. Not many cards get them out of this. Like they're big cards that like in general would get them out of it. Like Price of Progress is not going to work against my deck because my deck is monochromatic and has a lot of swamps. A few non-basics, but mostly just swamps. So anyways, guys, we even the matchup against Gosmet here in a 1-1 split, and we're going to go into a last game against Gosmet. So let's see what happens. Alrighty, guys, we're back for game of 3 against Gosmet. Yeah, that hand looked cool, but it wasn't good enough. This hand is a keeper. You're going to get rid of a land here, get rid of 1 swamp, keep the Mutavault plus land, and Chrome Mox, and then be looking to high roll out this Rotting Regisaur like turn 2 and just like start going to town on them. I'm not going to play the Sarcomancy out because Sarcomancy is kind of a risky card against them. It's a recurring source of damage for them if they kill the Zombo. I have a lot of Zombos, but I'd rather put that on their Chrome Mox, I think. You have a choice with Chrome Mox. So I go to attack here. Soulscar Mage is actually problematic. They tighten strength here, which I'm happy to see. Like this is a lot of damage being put into this one Ice-Eyed Golem, and I'm fine trading it. I would have thought they wanted to trade off the Seal of Fire, but evidently they want to retain the Seal of Fire. I'll go ahead and play out the Chrome Mox, get rid of the Sarcomancy, end up playing out the Kitesail Freebooter. So Kitesail Freebooter reveals Arc Trail, Galvanic Blast, and Shock, so it's 100 removal. All of this removal plus the Seal of Fire on board equates to 1 very dead Rotting Regisaur, which is why I made this play. What I wanted to do is kind of get some of these cards out of their hand, get them to waste some of these cards on the cards that I'm going to play right now, which is just these 2 crappy creatures. I took the Galvanic Blast because it has the most upside, it's the cheapest spell. Force them to use the Arc Trail early. They go ahead and oblige. They attack. I could have blocked here, but I just opt not to. I'm going to tap my Carnophage this turn. Draw to a Hymn to Turek. Hymn to Turek was one of the better draws in my decks. This allows me, like, discard's really powerful against mono red. Especially like the red deck win style decks, especially if they still have cards, because like getting a 2-for-1, this is 5 damage. Like this Hymn to Turek prevented 5 damage to my creatures or to my face. Draw to a Scrap Heap Scrounger, Scrappy Boy. Go ahead and play Scrappy Boy out. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't. I play out Rotting Regisaur. Now I want them to have to use their cards. Like they have Shock, they have Seal of Fire, they have to draw something else. But if they use all their resources, they can kill it. They drew it to a Fanatical Firebrand. I'm going to block. Now they have to do all of this. They have to 3-for-1 themselves to eat my Rotting Regisaur, which I'm honestly happy with. I draw to a Spawn of Mayhem, but because I've been tapping my Carnophage, I can't attack to Spectacle it out this turn. Draw to a Doomblade. This turn I do take 1 damage off Carnophage to attack with it. I go ahead and get them for some damage here. Play out the Spawn of Mayhem. They play out an Ash Zealot, do nothing. Taking their damage off of the Spawn of Mayhem. Tap the Carnophage down. Go ahead and play out my Swamp. Go ahead and Doomblade their Soulscar Mage because I think that's going to make it harder for them to remove the Spawn of Mayhem. They go ahead and Exquisite Firecraft, which is a good draw. I play out my Babo. I did attack him with the Mutavault that turn to start chipping them away on life. Get them out of 12 here. They put on a Goblin Guide. I see Kalitas on top of my deck, which is a pretty amazing draw. I just go ahead and trade the Bob off for the Goblin Guide here. I leave the Carnophage tapped. Go ahead and play out the Kalitas. And, Kalitas is a big boy. Now, I'm not going to try to block this Ash Zealot. They draw into a Barbarian Ring. So they could try to attack there and see if I, am a dummy and just, block with Kalitas. I don't. I could have played this a lot more aggressively, so I do something interesting here. I kind of want to see if they see that my Carnophage and my Mutavault are also zombies, which means that Kalitas can be used to eat them. I don't think they do when they make this line of play. So they Barbarian Ring my Kalitas as opposed to my face. I think they want to shoot my face or shoot my Carnophage. Shoot my face. They want to shoot my face down to 7. So they don't. They shoot my Kalitas. I think under the assumption that I won't attack with it then because the Ash Zealot could eat it. So at this point, I kind of figured that if they're playing this way, they're playing really defensively, and they don't recognize that, they probably need to be going aggressive towards my face. I don't think either is a great winning game plan, but I don't opt to actually eat the Carnophage or activate the Mutavault and eat the Mutavault with my Kalitas and then go back on the offensive, which would make it a 5-6, right? I opt just to hang back because I figure at some point they're going to attack, and it gives me more equity and information down the road. That could have been wrong. I could have just wanted to go aggro here, but I kind of wanted to see what they saw, I guess. See if they saw the line as well. I draw into Liliana here. play out Liliana, go ahead and uptick Liliana to get the last card, which is likely a 3 damage burn spell. Excuse me. And it is the Searing Spear. So it ends up eating the Liliana. I get a Zombo token. Off of Kalitas, they go ahead and play out a Scagplan Berserker. This card's not really relevant in this matchup. I go ahead and Alpha Strike with all here. See if they want to block. They don't. I eat my Carnophage because it's getting annoying. They draw Mox Ruby and go ahead and pack in the game. So, unfortunately, due to other commitments that I have in life, I had to drop at this point from the tournament. So I made it to the finals. I was going to be facing off against Rami on Bant Blink, which I think is a decent matchup. I think it's a good game. I think there's a lot of play to it. I don't know who's favored in it. It's close. But unfortunately, I had to drop at this point. So Gosman ended up going on to play Rami, and actually Gosman took it in a best of 5. Actually won the whole event, which is really awesome to see Mono Red win the whole event. But I felt really good about where this Tubby or Chonky SUI deck was at. I was really happy with how it performed. It lost one game versus Baylight, the Abzon deck, which I thought was going to be the hardest matchup in the tournament, and then managed to take another. I think I got to play some pretty cool games of Magic. Had a lot of fun doing it, and got to kind of play this cool, black aggressive deck that I think in general is probably a more matchup neutral deck than it's the generator of the deck, for me at least, the SUI version of the deck. This version, a lot of folks are saying, oh, this just looks better than SUI Black. And I'm like, well, it's all context driven, right? Like, SUI's really intended more for degenerates, for more degenerate metagames, like for extreme combo metagames, a lot of blue. This deck's more intended for, like, more green, more red, more whites, more of the fair colors of Magic. But I think, that said, like, folks have often said, like, SUI looks like a shitty deck, or it looks kind of like a bad deck. It's not, guys. Like, I promise you, this deck's good. Like, this deck can do really well. And, like, I think if I'd been able to play it out, if I'd been able to play it out, I would have been second place at a minimum. Whether I lost to Rami or beat Rami, I don't know. Who knows what would have happened if we'd played it out. But at a minimum, like, I think, this kind of, to me at least, goes to show that, like, this deck is real. Like, SUI is a real deck. Like, it's very mutable. It can be more of a mid-rangey build like this, or it can be a hyper-aggressive build, like aggro combo build, like the other versions I've showcased. But I do think it's due some respect. I think the deck has a lot of range. It's obviously an archetype that I put a lot of time into because I just enjoy it. It's just fun for me. For whatever reason, it's fun for me. Why anything is fun to anyone, I don't know. Whatever strange science or art is behind that. Whatever divine tapestry governs that, I don't know. But for some reason it is, and I put a lot of time into different builds of it, and I do think the deck's very mutable and has a pretty significant range against a lot of different metagames. Despite kind of, some shit-talking that people do on it from time to time, I think the deck's real. Like, I think it has the ability to go the distance. Now, is it the best deck in the format? No, I'm not going to sit here and say that. Like, if you want the best decks in the format, play Medium Red or play Jeskai. Like, or play, like, Storm. I don't know what Storm looks like now without Black Lotus and DT, but, like, those are the best decks. Like, if you're playing anything other than those, like, and you're trying to just, like, win every single game you play, and, like, it's not really as fun for you. It's just, like, more like I got to win. If you got to pull that greasy handle of the slot machine that always wins, play those decks. Like, they'll win for you a lot because they're just good. This deck is not that. It's solidly tier 2, but at the same time, like, I think it has significant enough game that, like, some of the discredit it gets from some folks, I think, is undeserved. I think it has enough depth to the card pool that you can play in it, that it has a pretty wide range of what it can beat. That said, I was really happy with this build of it. I think there's some stuff I could have done to fine-tune it a little better. I threw together the list relatively fast, off of the baseline of the aggro combo deck, the Black Lotus version of SUI, to play in this tournament because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to today. I was glad I got to play the 5 games that I did. Kind of upset I didn't get to play in the finals, but, it is what it is. Like, you have other life commitments you got to take care of. Magic's only a game. But I had a hell of a time playing it. I'm really happy that Gosman was able to go on and win it. I'm glad I got to play him at least first. I'm also glad I got to Kalitas him out. So, very, very fun. And if you're interested, I'm going to see if I can link the 10th Point. 10th Point is an event run off of the Canadian Highlander Discord. It's put up on Twitch, twitch.tv. It's every Saturday, 1 p.m. EDT. And I've had fun playing it. I haven't played it a ton. I've only actually played 2 tournaments before. I guess I did well enough in them that I was able to qualify for the finals. Actually, I won one of them, and I think went X1 in another one. And I managed to be the bottom seed. But yeah, I got to actually run a lot of upsets with this deck, despite it being like some folks have called a meta deck, and I was just really proud of the deck. I kind of want to share some of the successes that I've had with the deck, at least this to go out or going around. Had some lucky draws too, but I mean that's magic, right? Like you got to draw well, you got to play well, all of it has to go well if you want to consistently win with the deck. And some days it's just not going to happen. But this day it evidently was running pretty well, and I got to play some pretty sick games. Again, thanks to the Red Mage, the host of 10th Point, for hosting the tournament. And thanks to all the players that played in it, had a great time. And if this is the first time you're watching this format, Canadian Highlander, I hope it's at least intrigued you, and you should give it a try at some point in time. It's very cheap to play on Moto, relatively cheap to play on Moto. I mean, you can get a good deck you can make a good deck. Like Gosman's deck, I believe, is 30 tickets. It's a $30 deck. On MTGO. This deck that I'm playing is probably a lot more than that, but that's because I have a bunch of like weird masterpiece cards and snow-covered lands and stuff like that. But this deck that I'm playing is not exceedingly expensive either. You could probably build it on a budget of like 40 to 50 tickets, maybe less. I don't know. I have to really look at it. I don't think it's very expensive though. Or you can build some crazy 500 ticket monstrosity, like that's a big combo engine. Those are pretty sweet too. But anyways, a lot of stuff you can do in the format. This metagame is obviously a lot more fair, but I mean, if you want to play Storm's the thing. There's a lot of different things you can do in this format. Anyways, guys, I definitely enjoyed the games I got to play today. Hope you enjoyed getting to watch this deck and kind of like the changes I made in the deck to kind of tune it up for this metagame. Had a riot playing it, and I hope to play again a little bit next season. All right, guys, enjoy and take care now.